Assalamualaikum, Prof. Hasimatun.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, nice to meet you again.
Ya, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, Prof. Okay, we start this event. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Recording in
wabarakatuh.
progress.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second session e-lecturing for special themes in healthcare budgeting. My name is Halim Dedi Perdana, Master of Ceremonies and moderator of this event. So for the next session, we start for sing the national anthem of Indonesia Raya and the Universitas Terbuka hymn. The next session is a welcoming speech from the head of Public Financial Accounting Study Program, Faculty of Economic and Business of Universitas Terbuka. For the Mrs. Ratna Marta Dewi, time is yours.
Ya, thank you, Bapak Halim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Good day and welcome everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Ratna Marta Dewi as the head of the Public Financial Accounting Study Program Universitas Terbuka. On behalf of the organizer, I would like to extend my warm welcome and thank you to our honorable speaker, Dr. Azimatun Nurbinti Azuddin from the Department of Public Health Medicine, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Kebangsaan Malaysia, Medical Center Kuala Lumpur, and all participants. I also very thank you to the committee team for their diligent work on this international e-lecturing for health accounting course. Actually, this is our second meeting that will discuss healthcare budgeting. Last week, we discussed financing and developing a healthcare cost system. This international e-lecture has the brilliant aim of equipping students with extensive knowledge from overseas practitioners and academics. Hence, it is expected that students will have an adequate comparison of good accounting practices, especially in managing hospital finances, as well as learn English as an international language. This is in line with the vision and mission of the Public Financial Accounting Study Program and Universitas Terbuka to become a world-class university. Finally, I hope that Public Financial Accounting Study Program can contribute to accelerating better public services as the main objective of its existence. Without further ado, please enjoy this course and don't hesitate if you have any questions for further explanation from our speaker. Because if you are embraced to us, you will go astray on the road, ya. Jadi kalau Anda mau bertanya, maka akan sesat di jalan, ya. So you can also watch this lecture repeatedly via UT TV channel. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi. Thank you, Mrs. Ratna Marta Dewi, for the welcoming speech. Before we go through to the main event, please open your cam, all of you in the Zoom, because we have take a picture for the photo session. Please open the cam. Mrs. Nadira, can you help to take a picture, please?
Come on, guys, open your cam. Rizka, Nabila Haidi, Nur Pajrianti, Lili, Vijay, Deno, Amelia, and Bapak Bagus Panja. Don't be shy.
Please open your
Okay.
cam. Okay.
Yeah. You look so pretty, Nabila, Pak Bagus. You are awesome. And let's give your best smile. Okay. Please, Bu Nadira, take a picture. Okay then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Nadira Hardiana. Now, this is our main event. We will heard about healthcare budgeting. This is a very interesting, I think it's very interesting theme, because this is continue from the first session. The first session we heard about the financing and developing a healthcare ecosystem. Now, Prof. Azimatun will be explain more about the healthcare budgeting. I think you can explore, you can give a question about the healthcare budgeting, especially in Indonesia, because Prof. Azimatun have a good connection with the Indonesia Ministry of Health, I think. Okay, before Prof. Azimatun start, I will explain or about the CV or curriculum vitae for the Prof. Azimatun. Associate Professor Dr. Azimatun Nur Aizuddin is a trained medical doctor, earned master's and PhD in community medicine. She is a public health consultant and currently the head of International Center for Case Mix and Clinical Coding. HCTM, besides as a senior lecturer at the Department of Public Health Medicine in Faculty of Medicine, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, UKM. She is also a former assistant editor of International Journal of Public Health Research and reviewer of a few journals locally and internationally. She has published more than 50 papers. Wow, more than 50 papers locally and abroad, as well as a books chapter, and has presented more than 50 papers and proceeding locally and abroad. Besides that, she is a member of Technical Advisory Committee for Health Technology Economic Evaluation, Technical Advisory Committee for Case Mix. I think Case Mix is especially for the Professor Azimatun. Technical Committee member of ICD 11 implementation, and the last honorary treasurer of Malaysian One Health Network University Pro Team Committee. So for the Prof. Azimatun Nur Aizuddin, time yours. Thank you, Prof.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and thank you very much for the introduction. So I will actually share my slides. Okay, I hope you all can see. So the slides. Okay, can everybody see the slides? Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon again. So today's is actually a continuation from the previous lecture. The previous lecture is about health financing. So now I'm going to talk about the health budgeting. I'm going also to talk about, because last time when I mentioned about the health financing, I also mentioned a little bit about costing, but now in the health budgeting, I will go further a little bit about the budgeting. I will try to actually go detail, but however, when I'm preparing the lecture, so it seems that actually too much for me to touch everything. Okay, so I will try my best. However, please ask questions after the session. Then, in fact, I can share a few more informations if actually you need it. Yeah. Okay, so today's session is health budgeting. So when I try to translate it, okay, because the course module that I've given to me is actually penganggaran kesehatan. So it's actually health budgeting. And in fact, the objective of the lecture is actually looking at the kajian teori penganggaran kesihatan dan sistem penganggaran kesihatan, and also the teknik penganggaran kesihatan. So I'm going to talk about the costing or health economic evaluations later in this session. So issues in the health, in the financial allocation. When we talk about budgeting, we can avoid from looking at the financial allocations. So the issues, the main issues that why we are talking about the budgeting, why we talk about the financial allocation, this is about the low budget allocation for the Ministry of Health. Yeah. So in Malaysia, for example, our Ministry of Health budget is around 5 to 7% of the government budget. So it's actually 4.2% of our GDP. As I mentioned before, the priority given is actually more towards the first is actually for the educations. By years, maybe change, yeah? Education is first, second health, second development, or whatever. So, but the first priority is actually for the educations. So the allocation distribution, as I mentioned before, it's actually ranking. And this is actually how is actually the Malaysian situations. So this is the most current one. So the Ministry of Health is actually getting the second from the Ministry of Education. I need to stop for a while because somebody come into my room first. Sorry, interruption. Okay, so this is actually the continuation from the before. Yeah? So as I mentioned before, the allocation must be to the educations because education is needed, compulsory for us to deliver our healthcare. Our community must know about certain level of educations before they can accept and can understand whatever language in the health sectors that we are going to talk to them. Okay, so when we look at the global health expenditure, yeah, we can see that actually our region, okay, we are actually spending around 50 to 60% for our healthcare. Yeah, so this is how the budgeting is actually towards our healthcare. So when we look at the health expenditure in the Southeast Asia country, yeah, we can see here the topmost is actually Vietnam, Thailand, is also Singapore. Even Singapore is not the topmost. Yeah, this is actually the third. So when we see here, Malaysia is actually number 5th. Yeah, Indonesia is number 7. So we are not actually far away, yeah, between each other. So we actually roughly we spend it almost the same. Of course, we are going to talk further in terms of how we are budgeting. Of course, the Malaysia is actually very small country. Compared to Indonesia, it's very large country. You have significantly larger than us, yeah? So we look at the financial allocations into a balance between public and private health expenditure. We can see here at our region, under the OECD country, so we actually spend 25% from the private, yeah? So the majority of the expenditure is actually from our government, from our public, whether it's actually from the central or whether it's actually from the states. So, but we need our concern is actually about the financial allocation to the private sectors or by the private sectors. So this is actually how we can see in detail in terms of our country. So we can see here in Malaysia, okay, our proportion between the public and private is actually something that we could worry so much. Yeah, so in which that currently, so it's almost the same. Yeah, so it's currently reaching the same between the public and private. Yeah? So compared to Indonesia, your spending from the public is still actually your private is actually expenditure is actually bigger. Okay, so when your private expenditure is bigger, it's actually something that we are worried. Yeah, so whether this balance is it efficient and or is it actually inadequate in terms of what is the proportion by the private and what is the proportion from the government. So let's look at between this private So our concern is at the private sectors, the budgeting from the private. Okay, so we look at the private sectors, most of the people is actually spent out of pocket, compared to, for example, private health insurance. So this is the concern. So when we talk about out of pocket health expenditure, so we are talking about the catastrophic expenditure, whether our population spend more than what they're supposed to spend for their daily life. So that is our concern. So when we see the proportions, private is actually much bigger compared to the public. Okay, so the next issues in the financial allocation is actually equity in allocations of the resources. So we know that our country, we have the geographical inequality. So the difference between rural and urban, most of the time, 70% of the budget normally goes to the hospital. And most of the hospital is in an urban area compared to the rural. And 30% of the budget goes to rural only. And however, the proportion of the populations in the developing country, Indonesia and Malaysia also, is actually more in the rural area. And what we worry actually when they are actually the slum of the urban area. So in which that people are talking about urbanizations and urban population poverty in the urban populations. This is what we are talking about, and we are worried about. So when we talk about equity, so we are talking about how they access the healthcare, how we give the budget to them. So when we are actually measuring them looking at the left side of the population's equity, or we are looking at the left side of the right side of the picture. So whether we measure our equity, for example, different age, different geographical area, and etc., and how we say that actually we give equally. We give equally to the urban, we give equally to the rural. But are they reaching or whatever that we give? So that's why we are talking about the right side of the picture. So how much we should give to the urban and how much we should give to the rural. So let's look at in the global scenario. So in which that at the end, when we talk about the geographical rural-urban equity, we can see that actually healthcare access is actually is not equal compared to a geographical area. And we can see here that actually for Malaysia situations, we are actually 70%, and Indonesia is around 50%. And when we look at the color, we can see that actually at US, Canada, and Australia actually darker. So in which that they have more the allocations equity resources compared to us. So when we look at again in terms of the map of the healthcare workers. So in terms of equity of resources in terms of the healthcare workers, we can see that Malaysia and also Indonesia is actually at the whether it's actually around 50 to 70%, or is actually between 30 to 40%. So we are actually not enough yet our human resource in terms of how we distribute in the geographically between rural and also urban. So another equity in allocations of resources is actually between the operating versus development budget. Where we actually most of the time spend more towards the operating budget rather than development budget. And when we talk about another equity, is actually about emolument versus non-emolument budget. So 70% of our operating budget are actually for the emolument, and only 30% is actually towards the non-emolument, that is the drugs and also the supplies. When we talk about emolument, it's about our human resource. We pay the salary, for example. That's why we want to really allocate our resources efficiently, so in which that we don't spend too much for their salary, but actually allocate them accordingly, so that we actually have proportions of them significantly for each of the area of the healthcare. So besides that, okay, we also look at the types of services in equity. So in which that we can see here, when we combine this blue and also white color, we can see actually hospital care, physician and clinical services is actually get the big of the cake. Yeah, so 61% is actually towards the curative care rather than, for example, other healthcare or home care or preventive care. So here it also shows, shows that actually the curative care is actually bigger compared to the preventive care. So here again, looking at the Malaysia scenario, we also found out that it's actually our total expenditure for healthcare is actually more for the curative care. In fact, we spend 60%, more than 60% for our curative care compared to the prevention and public health is only 7.4%. Which is not following what is really the WHO recommendation. WHO recommend is actually to spend 40% and above for preventive care. Okay, so we were going to discuss further in terms of that and maybe any questions from you all after the lecture. So when we look at the ranking, the best healthcare in our Asian region, so we can see that actually Thailand is the best. Yeah? Thailand has the best healthcare in which that they have the 59% or 60% overall index. Yeah, compared to us, we are almost the same actually, 40 plus, yeah, and reaching 40 for Indonesia. And we look at the infrastructure. The Thailand have the best infrastructure. That means it's 98%. Yeah. So in fact, Malaysia is actually, our infrastructure is not good because we are majority is actually at the urban area to compare to rural. In fact, Indonesia is better in terms of infrastructure. Yeah. So professionals, proportional distributions, availability of medicines and other things. Yeah. So this is actually the index being measured in the Asian country, looking at the best healthcare system. Yeah. So when we look at the mortality, that means we look at the Asian health indicators. We can see that actually the Malaysia, so far, our indicator is almost reaching developed country. Okay, I know the Indonesia not reaching yet because you are very dispersed. Yeah, you have so many islands. Yeah, so your rural is actually more dispersed. Yeah, it's actually not maybe not very reachable. Rural also you have. Yeah, compared to Malaysia, our rural is still reachable compared to the Indonesia. So that is about the financial allocations issues that we've talked about the budget. Now, what is the budget process that we are talking about? Okay, so there is two types of budgeting process. We have top-down budgeting and also bottom-up budgeting. Let's look at the first one, top-down budgeting. So top-down budgeting is actually budget that actually imposed by the top level managers. So this is more of centralized budget. Yeah, little or no consultation with the managers at the lower level or operational staff. So that means the money is totally from the above to the ground level. Yeah. So the advantage of this top-down budgeting is actually faster because the cake and the money is actually at the higher level. Yeah, and it's also cheaper in which that they don't need to prepare so much in terms of documentations. They can just deliver when they have whatever documentation that they have. Can be used in the small organizations or organization with simple structure. For example, clinics or small hospital. Yes, similar to Malaysia, we are a small country, so that's why we are actually centralized. And majority of our budget is a top-down budgeting. However, we also implement the bottom-up budgeting that I'm going to actually share with you all. And another advantage of top-down budgeting is actually can be used to top-level managers are involved in the daily operational activities on the ground. So the top managers can see what happened in the ground before they can decide whatever they want to give to the ground. Yeah. So look at the more tedious work, bottom-up budgeting. So budget, for the bottom-up budgeting, the budget is actually being prepared by those who must implement the program or activities. That means the clinics itself, the hospital itself, the district, for example, the provinces, for example, who actually prepare what's the budget they need. Supervisors at the ground level prepare the budget proposals based on the certain guidelines. Then the department heads review the budgets and removes the inconsistency, and the proposal set up for approval to the higher level managers. So this is actually decentralization's manner. So the advantage of the bottom-up budgeting is very useful for the big and complex organizations. So I know Indonesia is actually using decentralizations. So because you have so many states, and you have so many provinces, and your province is also very large. So in which that you really need to look at your own province before you actually can decide what is the best for your province. Then in fact, so in Indonesia, similar to Australia, for example, the states have its own budget. So the advantage of the bottom-up budgeting also provide details and more exhaustive list of the activity to be funded depends on the individuals, organizations, or individual states or provinces. However, the disadvantage of this bottom-up budgeting is actually very slow and expensive because you need to do a thorough investigations, thorough documentations, and in fact, you need to use a lot of man-hours to plan. So you need to look in detail. When it's actually involved the big states, for example, when it's involved the big province, so you need to have more manpower, for example, to look in detail of your populations. So the problem in the budgeting process is actually most of the time is anxiety and also tensions among the managers. So because in healthcare, just like I mentioned in the previous lecture, resources are very limited. So managers may not enough resources for their activities or program. So managers may be judged on their ability to prepare a winning budget. So when they prepare the budget, of course, they are looking at their population, but they're also thinking of, how I can have that budget, because the budget is actually competing. So we compete with different states, for example, we compete between different organizations, for example, and we compete between different resources, for example. And another problems in the budgeting process is actually fairness in the allocations. We mentioned about the equity just now. So how fairness is actually being measured, whether it's actually measured as the left diagram just now, or it's measured like a right diagram just now. Priority may be given to the curative rather than preventive. We can see from the diagrams just now, it's actually curative is always got most, more than 50% for the curative. And in fact, state and also national level gets the priority than the district. So usually the urban will get more priority to the rural. So more problems in the budgeting process is about the incremental or historical approach. So this is actually the traditional approach that we've been done in many places, in many organizations. So in which that we use budget based on the previous year's expenditure. Then we propose maybe 10 or 20% for the subsequent years. So currently now we are in November. So we already now starting to collect data, what is our expenditure, and some other organizations start to think of, I have significant number of money that I have not spent. So at the end, they try to spend it so that they can show to the higher authority that actually they have spent it. And in this incremental and also historical approach, it's a very simple, and it's actually avoid the political decision because they look at the actual budget and also how much actually needed for the subsequent years. However, they're not based on what they actually plan to do. So I mentioned just now, at the end of the year, they have maybe extra money after they actually try to cut down the previous year, previous month. Yeah, but they tend to actually spend it anyway to show that actually they spend it enough, or they spend it all the money being given to them. So as a result, this is actually what happened. So we some sort like punish the efficient program or managers that manage to save certain amount of money. Yeah. So, and at the end, yeah, we actually some sort that reward an efficient program that shows to you that they spend the money. Okay, in which that whoever try to save the money, it sounds that, oh, you are given such amount, but you don't spend it. So that is the result of the incremental and also historical approach. In Malaysia, there is a terminology of Christmas shopping. So in October, November, people start to look at their budget and how much they already left at hand, and they try to spend it all during these months. So that's why it's called or end of the month. That's why it's called as a Christmas budget or Christmas shopping, sorry. So there's come another method of doing a budgeting. Yeah, so that is called by zero-based budgeting. So this zero-based budgeting is introduced to overcome the weaknesses of the previous budget method. Yeah, incremental budgets. So originally developed by the taxes instruments, so it actually requires manager to justify budget in detail from scratch to each budgeting period. So in which that you need to really show what you spent and how much you spent before you actually can project what is actually the needed of expenditure for the subsequent years. So you don't really look at your previous budget allocations. It didn't look at all whatever the expenditure of the year before or the current expenditure. Okay, so they need to re-evaluate all the organization activities at every budgeting exercise. So at the end of the year, they are looking at, oh, this is the activity been done, how much this activity been done, and they don't care whether this is actually previously how much they get, how much they don't get, for example, then they are going to justify this is amount that they needed. Yeah? So there is 3 steps involved in the zero-based budgeting, in which that you are looking at the activities in the packaging. Yeah, so you divide the activities into the decision package in each of the department. Then you rank each of the decision package according to their benefit to the organization, which one is actually the most needed, for example, compared to other activities. Then the budget is going to allocate which one is the important. For example, now we have the crisis, economic crisis. Worldwide is actually facing the economic crisis. Yeah, so especially us in here, because actually US is trying to actually increase their money to actually make their money is stable compared to us. Yeah, so we are the most affected. So now we need to rank what is actually activity, which one is activity is most needed, is more compulsory compared to others. So then we locate whatever the crisis, whatever the money that we have to the highest rank. Yeah, and we maybe actually skip whatever the one actually ranking below. So what things being decided in the decision packages? Yeah, so what we decide in the packages is actually the document that identify and describe a specific activities, such as purpose of the activities, the cost of each of the activities, the personnel requirement, indicators of the performance, alternative methods for performing the activities, and also recommended alternative to do that activity. So we need to actually really describe this in our package before we can rank it. So in terms of decision, we try to eliminate the activities, then try to continue what the activities at the current funding level that we have, limitations of money that we have. Then we try to modify or to reduce or increase the funding for what is the activity needed. Yeah, which one is the most needed, for example. So however, every process have its weaknesses and advantages. So the weaknesses of the zero-based budgeting is actually time-consuming. Just when we look at detail of the decision packages now, we really have too much of paperwork. We need to really look at each of the activities. Yeah, so that's why the time's consuming, and also there is involvement of the politics of the large organizations. The politics is the large organization try to actually rank the activities according to their preference rather than the needs. Yeah, so in healthcare organization, costing data may be difficult to obtain. So that's why last lectures I mentioned about the case mix. Okay, I'm going to do talk again now. It's more of the evaluations method. Okay, so we can see how difficult to get the data is. Yeah, and the benefit of the interventions may be difficult to assess. We are not sure what is the effectiveness. We are not sure how about the outcome, the safety, for example, and how is actually the outcome of the patients. Yeah. So requirement for essential services may be imposed by the top management. So whether it's actually essential or not. So as I said, whether it's actually the needs or more of the political influence, for example. So that is the weaknesses of the zero-based budget. So as the advantages of this zero-based budgeting is actually very useful when organizations face financial constraint. Yeah, for example, now we have financial economic crisis. This zero budget is very time-based to use actually to look at prioritize our activities and which one is actually the one that really need by the populations compared to whatever be need by or whatever the politicians wants to do. Okay, the next method in the budgeting is actually auditing. So usually auditing actually can be done in the economy and also in the other resources. So most of the time when we do audit, we try to look at or we try to detect fraud. So validate the honesty and also fairness in the financial statement, then assist in the management decision. So there is two types of auditing. It can be done internal audit and also can be done external audit. So internal auditing is actually performed by organizations to ensure that its assets are properly safeguarded and its financial records are really kept. So it evaluates the organizational efficiency. So it's carried out by the assigned members of the financial department in the organization itself. So usually we have the full-time internal auditing staff in the organization that will look at this auditing or quality auditing, etc. So it can be various in range and also department of activities, whether they do activities auditing in terms of financial control only, or maybe they do the financial control and also looking at the policies, procedures, and in fact the activities that they are actually auditing. So whether the activities actually really an activities or it's just documentations. So in terms of external auditing, it's actually verification process involving the independent appraisal of the financial accounts or statements by outsiders. So assets and also liabilities is actually verified and carried out by the outside accounting personnel. For example, for Ministry of Health, for example, maybe other ministries come to Ministry of Health and audit our financial, for example. So it's easily from the top level asking to do the auditing. Yeah. So for example, in Malaysia, because we are centralizations, so we have actually the auditors, from the national level that come to all the organizations, all the ministry, and they present the auditing findings to the country and also available for the public. So problems with auditing is actually disharmonies in organizations because you're some sort like suspicious with the internal audit. Oh, you come to my office to look at what? So there you have the skeptical in terms of, oh, this auditor is coming to check your work, something like that. Yeah, suspicious towards internal audit staff in the financial department, and also people tend to actually give a poor support from the poor support in terms of to the auditors, and the auditors will face difficulties to obtain information. So in which that they need to dig whatever information they want to know and want to see, and try to cover up for the political issues, for example. So maybe the political reasons make things actually obvious, okay, then they try to actually cover it up. So internal auditors usually try to cover up certain things. However, when the external auditing comes, okay, they cannot actually cover up things anymore. Yeah. So that's why actually the external auditing is very important to look at the detail of the company or the detail organizations rather than the internal auditing itself. So another problem of the auditing is actually carried out too late. So that means we have run our process, we have run our activity, then only we actually do audit. Okay, so and it's actually we found frauds. Yeah, we actually during that time we already lost a significant amount of money, for example, and hiring the auditors and etc. is also another expenses. Yeah. Then however, some of the things actually no action taken after auditing, findings can be there. Okay. But we need to have a political will that actually look at the finding and take an action to the finding. Usually when there is a political issues, okay, for example, rasuah, yeah. So for example, the people tend to cover up each other and they tend to actually don't do anything with the audit finding. Yeah, so that is another problem with the auditing. So this is about the budgeting and how we want to calculate all this, yeah, in the health financing. So that's why the next section of the lecture, I'm going to talk about the health economy evaluation. So how we want to calculate all these activities in detail. Yeah. Of course, I cannot cover everything, so I'm going to just share you a little bit. Okay, because when I try to do my lectures, I found out it's actually 200 plus lecture notes. Oh, I cannot. Slides is too much. Okay, it's going to be very boring. So you will, I actually allow for you to ask questions instead. Yeah. Okay, as introductions, the economy evaluation, health economy evaluations is actually a technique developed by the economists. Yeah, I think you all know. Okay, to assist decision making when choice have to be made between several causes of actions or activities. So we need to choose for the scarce resources. So in any organization, we always have the scarce resources, whether it's a human resource, whether it's time, whether it's actually financial. So why do we need economic evaluations? First of all, actually to help us or assist us in the decision making, choosing between programs, choosing between policies, choosing between interventions, and also choosing between modes of treatment. Yeah. So the second one is actually towards us evidence-based practice. So people are talking about evidence-based. So we need to do something, to do evaluation, even the economic evaluation, to show that this is actually evidence-based and shows this is actually the cost-effective, for example. So avoid of the unsystematic analysis and decision. Oh, I think this is expensive. I think this is cheaper, for example. Yeah, educated guesses. Kononnya, yeah. So what did we did last time? So last time we do like this. Why don't we proceed with it like this? So we are no more in that era. So nowadays it's actually towards the evidence-based practice. And in fact, economic evaluations has been done to guide the deployment of the scarce resources that we have currently. For example, drugs. So we have limited drugs, we have equipment limitations, we have facility limitations, for example. And resources in terms of people, time and knowledge and skill is also something is actually scarce currently. In drugs, we have generic drugs, for example. We have more of the pharmaceutical branded drugs, for example. So that is a different cost, for example. And we tend to say, the branded drugs is actually expensive. So we need to do a measurement and we need to actually evaluate its effectiveness, for example. So what is the costing rationale? Is to allocate cost to product or services and also according to the factors that most influence them. So not necessarily the price is actually the important factors. So maybe other things actually the important factors that determine whether the drugs, whether the treatment is actually effective or is actually cost effective, for example. So as you know, in healthcare, it's not just cost, okay, and it's not just drugs. It's not just for, the stay, the wards, yeah. So we do many things for one patient with one disease. In fact, we also have the administrators that look at the hospital and also look at the resources of the hospital. And don't forget about utility of the hospital. Who pays for that? Yeah, and who pays for the physiotherapy, for example? Who pays all the oxygen in the ICU and OT or operation theater, for example? All this been considered in the cost in the health economy evaluations. So how to calculate this is actually not that easy. Yeah, so I will share you a method for calculating this. So there is 3 costing methods. So we actually have step-down costing or top-down costing. Then we have activity-based costing or bottom-up costing. And we have a combinations of activity-based costing and also top-down costing. So if you can remember, we're talking about case mix previously. So I'm going to go detail about the case mix method after this. Okay, in terms of step-down costing, the principle is really to accurately determine the cost of achieving program output or results by allocating all the costs of running a hospital to the departments providing the final output of the hospital, that means to the patients that we treat. So this Drummond et al. Is actually the father in the health economy. So the next is actually start to talk about the total expenditure and also divide this accordingly and measure the total output to give average cost per patient per visit or per patient per day admission or per patient per admission. So different terminology. So per visit is really 1 day seeing the doctors. Per day is really 1 day patient in the hospital. Per admission can be many days in patient stay in the hospital. Yeah. So how this step down costing advantage been done is actually can be carried out quickly because we have the bigger portion of the money and we allocate it down to us. Yeah, and save variable time and also use routine statistics that we collect every day from the hospital or from the clinic. And it's also cheap because it's just using the data. No need to spend too much money to employ many staff to collect the data because it's actually the existing data of the hospital and can be used a simple computer program such as simple software for the top-down costing is actually cheaper than, in fact, we in the hospital Chancellor Tengku Mukris or HUKM, we are using the Excel. So, but it's actually advance of the Excel. Yes, is as our software basis before we actually imported it into the AI or artificial intelligence to calculate for us. And it's very suitable for the case mix system because it's actually from up to down. So high level of accuracy for the development of cost weight, budgeting, hospital budgeting, and also hospital tariff. So this is what the Indonesia are using the case mix for. Yeah, so in which that you are actually calculating for your hospital budgeting and also hospital tariff. So and actually we can easily detect errors and rectify the errors using this system. So another advantage of using a step down is actually the costing data reliable and also robust in terms of how we use it. The costing data cannot be easily manipulated and easy to detect fraud. Yeah, so this is about the step down costing in terms of advantages. So what is the requirement? What is the needs in the step down? First of all, we need to understand the hospital financing system. That's why the financing system must be well documented and also must be in the system much easier to retrieve. Yeah, so easily done task Okay, because it's actually most of the documentation is there in terms of financial wise. Then we establish the cost center. In the case mix, we establish the cost center and we use the virtual cost center if it's not yet established in the organizations. Then we need to establish cost allocation factors in which that we need to know the size of building, the staff time, the staff ratios, the staff number, and etc. That requires annual financial data updating so that we can allocate accordingly to each of the department, each of the patients, and also each of the diseases group. So 7 steps in the top-down costing is actually, or step-down costing is actually identify the total expenditure available in the hospital, classify the hospital department by its cost center, select statistic to use as the allocation basis, then identify total cost by the individual per cost center, in which that we divide the cost center into the overhead cost center, intermediate cost center, and also the last is actually patient care or final cost care cost center. So the 5th step is actually allocate the cost of the overhead cost center to the intermediate cost center. The next step is actually allocate the cost of the intermediate cost center to the final cost center. And at the end, we estimate costs allocated using the step-down costing and link it between with the related DRG. Then we can come out the cost of per patient per DRG. So this is how it looks like. What is the department as example in the overhead cost center? Is administration. Yeah, for example, the administrators actually handling or looking over overall for all the staff in the hospital. Utility, we can't actually really have the detail of activity each of the department. Usually it's actually paid by the hospital. Yeah, the maintenance is also paid by the hospital, the tax, insurance, and others. Whatever the cost that been paid by the higher authority is called overhead cost center. Okay, then we have the intermediate cost center, for example, each of the department. So we have pharmacy, radiology, laboratory that is actually been shared with other department. Okay, so the final one is actually the patient final cost center is actually the department itself, medical department, surgical department, and also the wards under the department. So that is the final, because they don't share their human resource compared to others. Yeah. So this is how Malaysia in hospital UKM. Okay, so we actually have the data costing data template that we request from the Department of Health and Information Department, Nursing Department, Financial Department, Human Resource Department, and also Infrastructure Department. Then after that, we actually distribute the cost template to the department and collect from them and compile, and then we analyze. So what is the data sources and also gathering process? So of course, the statistic data on the major hospital activities such as how many admission, how many discharge, how many inpatient, how many outpatient, and etc. actually been documented. So in fact, the bed occupancy rate and etc. is also be measured similar to average length of stay. So the capital cost of the hospital, how much we buy this hospital, for example, how many years back we buy this hospital, and what is the cost of the hospital now, the building now, and how much is there actually we spend for our equipment and the furniture. So we retrieve all the financial department informations on the model, also type of the equipment and furniture by the cost center. So that means the cost center, the intermediate cost center is actually will give us the detail of this equipment and how much and etc. So then we also calculate or also gather the information about the recurrent cost in the financial statement of the hospital, and also the salaries for each personnel working in the hospital by the department. So this is the minimum data set that we need to in our calculations. For example, the general data such as hospital performance, financial performance, hospital structure, and also hospital staffing. The specific data, of course, we are going to enter all the general data into the overhead cost center, intermediate cost center, and also the final cost center. So then for the overhead cost center, we are going to actually allocate cost to the intermediate cost center as well as to the final cost center. So in which just now we calculate how much actually for the intermediate and how much actually for the final. It does not receive cost from other cost center. That means the overhead is actually, that means the topmost organization or topmost department. Yeah, so it provides services to other cost center. So such as administration just now. Yeah. So this is how the roughly our templates it look like. So in which that we use Excel previously, then we actually mentions what the data we needed and who are going to give such data. So we identify each of the department to put in their data inside our data template. So the intermediate cost center, it receives cost from the overhead cost center and they also locate. That's why just now in the intermediate cost center is the pharmacy, is the laboratory, is radiology, because they got money from the higher authority and they also deliver for many departments. Yeah. So this is how. So we give the templates to the department for the in the intermediate cost center to put their data. Yeah. So next is actually patient's care cost center or final cost center. So it receives cost from both the intermediate and overhead cost center. It does not allocate cost to the other center. It's a final cost center already. So they are the one actually last involved in the patient's treatment. So this is how the template that we give to the partner cost center that we are going to calculate further. So this is the data that we ask from them. Okay, so how the allocation been done? How the statistic been done? Yeah. So when we look at the administrations, for example, how we calculate the administration's cost, basically by the employer number and also the direct expenses to the equipment, for example. Yeah? And the maintenance, we actually divide the maintenance cost to each of the department by their floor area. Then in fact, to each of the ward is actually by their floor area. Cleaning service is also the same. You use the floor area to calculate the cost of the cleaning services for each of the ward and also department. Laundry, we use the pounds of laundry and also number of staff and also patient stays. Actually, how much the laundry of each of the department or wards. Similar to the dietetic department, so we actually look at how many meals actually be provided for that department or that wards, how many numbers, what numbers of the nurse is involved in the dietitian delivery, deliver the diet, and what is the patient stays. And the telephone, we look at how many staff and also how many lines they have and others. So it depends on the cost center, we calculate and we allocate the statistical data accordingly. So all this actually being used allocations. So at the end, this is our final cost. So we can at the end we can get the cost per operations. We can get cost per inpatient stays of each of these wards patients, and we also can have cost per outpatient days or per visit for each of the clinics. So top-down costing is the most widely used costing method for hospital services in developing countries, and costing that from top-down methods is accurate, robust, reliable, and also not easily manipulated. And the best way to estimate cost of the patients is to use the top-down costing and combine with other methods such as bottom-up and so clinical pathway if necessary. So this is what we do in the case base. So let's look at another method of costing, that is the activity-based costing or bottom-up costing. So in the bottom-up costing, so we need to define the activities or define the objective. I mentioned just now in the budgeting about the decision package, in which that in the decision package we have the activities. So for that particular activities, we need to do a bottom-up costing. So when you describe the competing alternative to achieve those objectives, then we identify and also measure the cost of each of the options, and identify and measure the consequence of each option, for example, effectiveness, okay, and calculate the cost consequence of the each options and also interpret the results. So I will go a little bit detail about this. So type of the economic evaluation, we have two. We have partial evaluations, there's also full evaluations. In the partial evaluation, we have cost description and also cost analysis. Under the full evaluation, we have cost minimizations analysis, because cost effectiveness analysis, cost utility analysis, and also cost benefit analysis. But not to forget, besides of these two types of the major types of economic evaluation, we also have economic evaluation in terms of measuring willingness to pay, and also now we also use we calculate in terms of budgeting, and we calculate in terms of economic evaluation using a budget impact analysis, looking at the projection of 5 years or 10 years of the budget or costing. So look at each of these cost analysis. Cost description studies means studies which examine only costs or consequence without comparing any groups. Yeah? So a single service or program is actually being evaluated and described accordingly. So that means how much is the program. Then cost analysis is actually measures the cost of one or more treatment or services, and we only present the cost. Okay, and there is also no comparison being made. There is a possible many treatment being actually measured, but there is no comparison. You just present, oh, A is actually how much, B how much, C and how much. Then cost minimization, starting from the cost minimization, then only we have the comparison. So in cost minimizations, we measure the cost of each of one or more treatments or services. Then we compare the cost between one or A, B, C, for example. We compare in terms of cost. Okay, then we assume that all of these three methods, A, B, C, is actually having the same outcome. Okay, so that is cost minimization. Which one is the cheaper? Okay, giving the similar outcome. Cost effectiveness, whatever, is actually measure the cost of one or more treatment or services, but now we are actually comparison to a single outcome. The effectiveness, the one actually we concern here, besides the cost. So in which that we try to compare between A, B, C is what is the cost per life years, for example, of the patients with the disease. So what is the cost per patient successfully treated with the alternative or the treatment, for example? And what is the cost per life saved for certain preventions method, for example, and cost per whatever. The next method is actually cost utility analysis, in which that we measure the cost similar to each of the treatments. Then we compare the one common outcome. So the example of the cost utility is actually cost per quality adjusted life years, or QALY, or quality per disability adjusted life years, or DALY. So this cost effectiveness analysis and cost utility analysis sometimes mix up when you read in the journal. Some people measure cost per QALY, but they declare it as a cost effectiveness. Okay, so cost effectiveness and cost utility sometimes actually a mixture up. Yeah, but for the theory perspective, so cost effectiveness, you don't really measure the quality part. You don't really measure about the utility of the life. Yeah, so that is actually the different, significantly different. So the next is actually cost benefit analysis. So in which that you look at the benefit of the treatment, and you try to actually monetary that activity, yeah, that benefit. Yeah, for example, you try to make it as a one-to-one. So years of life, for example, you assign as the money value based on the future potential earning of the individuals. Okay, then cost of the continued care or treatment. So you put as one value. So people also use cost benefit analysis. People use a willingness to pay for the treatment. So how much you're willing to pay for the treatment? A, B, C, for example. Use that as a value for the benefit. So this is actually the summarize of the types of study or cost analysis, that what is actually the consequence that we measure. So for example, Okay, which drug is more cost effective to reduce diastolic blood pressure, for example. Okay, drug A is actually the latest drugs, more expensive, less side effects, for example. Drug B is actually conventional drugs that we use currently, is cheap, but more side effects. So we need to measure the cost of the drugs and we need to measure the consequence of the side effects. So for example, here the calculations, and at the end, we look here where we calculate, we found that actually only Malaysia ringgit 37 to reduce 1 millimeter mercury of the blood pressure, for example. But for the drug B, although it's a cheap, but it's actually not very effective. So in which that we need to spend double to reduce 1 millimeter mercury of diastolic blood pressure, for example. So at the end, we can see that drug A is actually more cost effective compared to drug B, although the drug A is actually expensive. So I think that's all. Okay, so if I want to go detail about all this budgeting and also all this costing, it actually takes time. Okay, I think we have spent significant an hour for me to deliver. So I open for question and answer for me to answer you all queries. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Azimatun. Very interesting explanation about the healthcare budgeting, Prof. I think we have one question in the meeting chat from the Afifah Rahadian.
We read the questions.
Yeah.
I have a question how we could many healthcare budgeting from zero to be healthcare with digital if we calculate by economic digital. I don't understand what you mean by the economic digital, but in terms of digitalizations of the healthcare, so most of the healthcare actually now been digitalized using the health management information system. So using the health management information system, you can use the artificial intelligence. So for example, here in a hospital UKM, I mentioned just now a template that we developed. So we use the template initially developed using Excel. Then we actually customize the template according to our hospital. Then we actually try to inbuild this template into our system. And we hope actually we can retrieve many data that initially we sent to the department to retrieve all the data. And in fact, with our electronic medical record, we can also retrieve a few of the medical hospital performance and etc. from that electronic medical record, and also financial medical record, financial system. Then we also can retrieve whatever the department utilization or usage in terms of the drugs from the pharmacy, in terms of the human resource and etc. So I think that is how the digitalize of the healthcare and the digitalized system can help us in terms of the calculations and optimize our calculations and also optimize our statistical analysis and etc. Yes, Afifah. You want to actually voice out your questions instead?
Yes, please, Afifah Rahadian.
Yeah, you can actually unmute yourself and ask questions. Yes, Afifah, you can unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, Miss Azimatun.
Yes, Afifah.
Jasmine, how we can do any hair care budgeting with digital if there's still low economic, or maybe after that they can using hair care budgeting.
Sorry. Again, can you rephrase your question? You can speak in Malay. I can understand.
Oh
in,
ya.
in bahasa Melayu is much
Bahasa.
easier.
Oh ya, Melayu.
Ya, biasa.
Bahasa Indonesia
Bisa.
boleh. Bisa lah, silahkan.
Apa saja yang kita lakukan terhadap penganggaran kesehatan
Ya.
bagi masyarakat yang belum ada penganggaran kesehatan, dimulai dari zaman dulu maupun zaman sekarang, dan apa saja keunggulan bagi masyarakat yang sudah memiliki healthcare budgeting atau penganggaran kesehatan.
Maksudnya setakat ini apa sudah yang kita buat ya?
Ya.
Okey. Kalau saya bisa terangkan dalam bahasa Melayu ataupun bahasa Melayu Nusantara, sebelum ini kita sering menyatakan bahawa sebanyak ini yang kita belanja. Tetapi sebanyak ini yang kita belanja ini, kita tidak mempunyai suatu asas berapa yang kita belanja itu adalah amount yang sebenarnya kita belanja untuk setiap satu perkara yang kita lakukan itu. Seringnya kita menggunakan kita punya gut feeling. Ya, kalau kita nyatakan harga ini mahal, ya kenapa dia mahal? Kerana kita belinya mahal contohnya. Ya, so tetapi dengan adanya method ataupun penganggaran kesihatan ini, jadi kita kalau tengok daripada lecture saya tadi, saya sudah menyatakan bagaimana kita measure is actually bagaimana kita menganggarkan kesihatan itu lebih objektif. Ya, so in fact kita sebenarnya bukan mengirakan price-nya, ya, tetapi kita mengambil kira bukan price-nya sahaja, tetapi sebenarnya harga ini mahal kerana orang yang membuatnya. Siapa, berapa, lama dan sebagainya. Ya, so bukan sahaja hasil luarannya sahaja, tetapi kita mengambil kira juga beberapa perkara di sebaliknya. Barulah kita kata, dia mahal kerana harganya dan dia mahal kerana berapa ramai orang yang terlibat untuk memberi perkhidmatan pelayanan tersebut. Contohnya. Ya, kalau di Malaysia, kebanyakan pelayanan kita mungkin adalah orang kesihatan sendiri, ya. Di Indonesia untuk komuniti itu biasanya digunakan orang komuniti kan, apa yang dipanggil itu yang orang masyarakat itu yang sendiri melakukan pelayanan itu ataupun measurement itu. Enggak keluar pula perkataan saya. Bukan kagar. Pelayanan kesihatan itu yang di masyarakat itu panggilnya apa? Yang itu orang tempatan sendiri yang mengambil data daripada kejiranannya. Jadi yang ambil data itu dan dianalisa kemudian diberikan kepada provinsi dan kepada orang kesihatan itu. Apa namanya tu? Di Indonesia kan itu ada pelayanannya di tiap taman ataupun di tiap villages itu ada komunitinya kan ya yang measure. So sebenarnya kalau di Malaysia lebih mudah kita menganggar kesihatannya kerana kita tahu gaji setiap orang. Kalau di Indonesia kerana yang bergerak untuk menghasilkan data kesihatan itu adalah komuniti sendiri, so mungkin agak sukar untuk mengira masa, gaji dan sebagainya kerana tidak digajikan. Ya, tetapi sebenarnya kita boleh mengambil kira, ya, contohnya, ya, orang yang collect data di komuniti itu apa pekerjaannya ataupun apakah education levelnya untuk kita menganggarkan berapa allowance ataupun berapa banyak kita akan bayar dia setiap minit contohnya. Setiap minit ataupun setiap jam dia lakukan perkhidmatan tersebut, pelayanan tersebut. Ya, so itu sebenarnya perbezaan daripada zaman dulu dengan sekarang sebenarnya lebih kepada pengiraan kita itu adalah lebih objektif. So, setiap satu perbuatan kita itu dikira. Ya, sama ada mengikut gajinya mengikut masanya atau juga mengikut barangnya. So itu yang bezanya. Adakah saya menjawab, Afifah?
Ya. Maaf. Kedua macam mana?
Kurang dengar?
Dengar.
Kurang jelas itu?
Ya, silakan.
Macam mana caranya ketika kita memberi harga yang lebih murah ketika semuanya sudah dapat penganggaran kesehatan maupun yang non penganggaran kesehatan. Itu macam mana?
Sekali lagi, nurse.
Macam mana caranya ketika kita sudah memiliki sistem penganggaran kesehatan melalui digital maupun yang non digital.
Okey. Kalau yang digital dengan yang tak digital.
Ya.
Okey, kalau yang tak digital itu okey. Malaysia juga dahulunya tidak digital, ya. So walau bagaimanapun, ya, kita ada okey. Di Malaysia kita ada hospital yang digital, kita ada hospital yang non digital. Tetapi dalam penganggaran kesihatan kita sudah buat kita punya template ataupun kita sudah nyatakan apakah data-data yang diperlukan. So daripada data-data yang diperlukan ini, kita sudah buat contohnya untuk hospital-hospital yang tidak digital itu mungkin kita akan buat borangnya. So dan borang itu adalah hampir sama dengan kita punya Excel contohnya. So jadi asalnya dahulu sebelum digital, kebanyakan hospital itu digitalize, data-data yang ada dimasukkan di dalam Excel. So daripada Excel itu dihantarkan kepada central level untuk dianalisa. Tetapi zaman digital sekarang ataupun bagi hospital-hospital yang ada digital, kita sudah inbuilt di dalam hospital tersebut sistemnya. So contohnya saya kata tadi template Excel itu kita telah transform ataupun masuk ataupun kita import di dalam sistem digital. So daripada hospital yang tidak digital dengan hospital yang digital, ini di central ataupun di state, ya, sudah di-mergekan. Itu yang kita dapat mengira mengikut state, for example. Of course, ya, kepada yang non-digital, they can also measure using a non-digital manner. So mungkin sekadar Excel sahaja ataupun secara manual sahaja. Okay, sebelum dia hantar Excelnya itu ke dalam digital form. So di Malaysia kita sudah ada digital software untuk beberapa pelayanan kesihatan kita yang kita boleh collect data secara terus daripada the lower level to the state level. Okay, so boleh dilakukan. Memang di Malaysia juga bukan semua hospital kami, kita ada 147 hospital dan hospital di Kementerian Kesihatan. Ini saya bilang Kementerian Kesihatan, ya, saya di bawah bukan Kementerian Kesihatan, ya, tetapi sebab saya jawatan kuasanya, ya. So bukan 147 hospital di Kementerian Kesihatan itu digitalized, ya. So mungkin ada yang total hospital information system, ada yang masih belum basic hospital information system lagi. Jadi ini yang tetapi kita standardizekan, kita panggil National Dictionary of Definitions of all the terminology. So that's why yang kita guna ICD-10, kita guna ICD-9CM, then in future insyaAllah we are going to use ICD-11 in terms of how we collect the data. And we use a template in terms of how we want to calculate for the case mix method. So that is how we are using the non-digitalized and also digitalized informations. So saya tak pasti Indonesia bagaimana, tapi saya faham bahawa Indonesia actually have very big range of the populations and also geographical area. So tetapi saya nampak data collections actually been made, and I can see that actually your states and also provinsi yang tidak mempunyai digital juga sampai datanya kepada central level to be analysed.
Oke, Bu Afifah, oke, sudah clear ya, sudah jelas ya.
Ya udah jelas Pak.
Oke, terima kasih.
Oke, kita ada soalan atau apa itu Pak Bagus nyatakan BPJS itu?
Tadi jawaban yang community tadi, Prof.
Oh ya, okey. Ya, Indonesia itu sudah bagus, sudah ada BPJS. Saya sebenarnya secara ikhlasnya in term of BPJS berfungsi itu, saya di Malaysia ingin belajar daripada BPJS. So walaupun saya mengajar Indonesia, orang-orang Indonesia, tetapi saya masih juga belajar daripada orang Indonesia. Ada juga yang banyak yang saya perlu belajar daripada orang Indonesia.
Kalau sistem di Malaysia masih belum seperti BPJS ya, Prof ya?
Belum. Kita memang sebab kita belum ada national financing. So di Indonesia sudah ada national financing kan?
Ya.
So itu kita di Malaysia belum ada. Kita masih menggunakan taxations. So we are still based on the tax. Then we got money from the central level, and we get actually, but now we are actually planning to actually have our national financing to because we found out actually people actually start to have a significant number of the private sectors ataupun private out of pocket expenditure is actually increasing. We afraid that within the few years our population will go to the catastrophic expenditure. So that's why we actually start to think about the national financing. You can see just now the graph. Okay, I think Indonesia, once we have a strong BPJS in future, and once the actually BPJS improve further, I think that actually you will come for the you will actually go to the good universal coverage in term of coverage of the populations who actually goes into the catastrophic expenditure. But it takes time. Okay, Ratu Cendana, dalam pemilihan obat, jika dilihat dari contoh di atas, lebih efektif obat yang lebih mahal. Kenapa jika kita menggunakan BPJS, obat yang diberikan obat generik? Bukankah lebih menguntungkan jika menggunakan obat yang lebih mahal tetapi efisiennya tersebut sembuh? Oh, okay. Itu hanya contoh, ya. Sebenarnya, seperti yang dilihat di introduction tadi tentang diri saya juga merupakan ahli jawatan kuasa Health Technology Assessment, Health Economy, Health Technology Assessment. So semua ubat di Malaysia juga kita tidak menggunakan ubat yang mahal-mahal semuanya, ya. So setiap ubat yang kita berikan perlu melalui Health Economy Technical Health Technology Assessment, ya. So perlu dibuat cost effectiveness analysis dahulu baru ianya boleh digunakan. So bukan semua ubat yang mahal itu efficient. So ada beberapa ubat yang bila kita measure cost effectiveness itu adalah tidak efektif, ataupun saya rasa cost effectiveness itu adalah agak tinggi, ya. Di mana bila kita compare dengan ICER ataupun kita kata capability of the country, then it's actually not reaching the capability of the country. So ada beberapa ubat yang kita dapati tidak cost effective, kita tak masukkan dia di dalam kita punya senarai ubat yang ditanggung kerajaan, atau kata kalau di Indonesia mungkin BPJS, ya. Jadi tidak semua. Memang masa awal saya belajar dahulu 10 years back, ya. In fact masa saya masters lagi, saya memang sering ke Indonesia, ya, sebab UK memang ada kolaborasi dengan Universiti Gajah Mada, ya. So ketika itu memang saya dapati di Indonesia rakyat Indonesia itu suka sangat guna ubat mahal, ya. Sering membeli ubat di farmasi itu, ya, kerana katanya ubat yang mahal itu lebih bagus, ya. Tetapi di Malaysia berbeza, kerana Malaysia memang setiap ubat yang masuk di negara kita, di Malaysia itu perlu melalui technology assessment. Ya, so barulah kita nyatakan ubat ini mahal tapi efficient. Dan bila efficient, bila kita calculate cost effectiveness analysis and it found that to be cost effective, then only it's actually been prescribed. Ubat yang mahal-mahal yang tidak cost effective is not going to be prescribed in the government hospital or university hospital. They still can buy by themselves in the pharmacy. So that is how. So itu hanya sekadar contoh sahaja saya bagi Ibu Ratu Cendara. So it's not necessarily. As a health technology assessment or health economics technology assessment, we measure many things and we found out that not every drug is actually cost effective. And we try to actually advise our consultants, clinical consultants, that actually to use accordingly, depends on the patient's condition and also depends on the patient affordability. If actually they affordable and it's actually they wants to pay, so that's why willingness to pay is another method of measuring. If they want to pay, although this is actually not very cost effective, they can buy by themselves. But we are not encourage them, we not support them, and we not actually pay or reimburse for the that drugs, for example.
Yes,
bagaimana menghargai keahlian doktor spesialis berkait dengan insentif yang akan diberikan diukur dari doktor visit. Apa benda di rumah sakit perintah dan di swasta. So sekejap ya. Keahlian doktor spesialis, you mean may I know further about keahlian doktor spesialis? Are they registered or they not registered, or whether they are specialists, whether they are not specialists? Is that that?
Yes, Prof. So can I explain little bit ya?
Yeah. Silakan.
Specialist is more than specified doctor, like the specialist of skin, like this. But in Indonesia, there is difference between one hospital and the other hospital, especially the government hospital and the private hospital. So the incentive of the specialist doctor in the private hospital is more expensive, higher than government hospital. I think the little bit explain about this question is this, Prof.
Okay. So similar to Malaysia, don't worry. Doctors in the government hospital, they are paid lesser ataupun sedikit berbanding dengan di swasta. Di swasta itu 5 kali ganda atau 10 kali ganda gajinya So sama juga di Malaysia. Walau bagaimanapun di Malaysia kita ada National Specialist Registry. So maksudnya sama ada kerja di government ataupun kerja di private, ataupun di swasta, mereka ini bukan for false claim specialist. So mereka perlu buktikan mereka itu adalah specialist yang graduate daripada yang diiktiraf oleh negara Malaysia untuk mereka diregister di bawah National Specialist Registry. So tetapi gajinya mungkin berbeza. Kalau saya jumpa doktor pakar ONG di government hospital, mungkin bayarannya sedikit, tetapi private itu mungkin bayarannya mahal, namun itu adalah bergantung kepada siapa yang membayar mereka. Kalau di government, gajinya itu dibayar oleh kerajaan, jadi sebab itu harganya murah. So ataupun bayarannya murah. Tetapi kalau di di private ataupun di swasta, gajinya itu lebih mahal kerana orang yang pergi ke swasta itu bayarnya pun mahal. Jadi itu yang menyebabkan gaji mereka berbeza. Kalau dikirakan, kalau sebab ini, kalau ikutkan soalan ini adalah diukur daripada doktor visit. So kita biasanya dalam pengukuran, kerana kita nak standardizekan untuk keseluruhan negara, kita tidak boleh mengira gaji swasta. Sebenarnya kita lebih kepada mengira gaji yang sepatutnya mereka dapat. Kemungkinan kita akan balancekan between the public and also the private. But we cannot consider the totally the private, because some of the private hospital is actually too much. So they are making money out of the healthcare. Okay, itu kita tak bisa ikut. Yeah. So in which that our Malaysian Medical Associations, MMA, is really looking at this, and in fact the charges ataupun kita kata kita ada mengeluarkan fee schedule, ya, iaitu senarai yang dibenarkan ataupun kita kata shilling untuk private practice charge, supaya mereka tu tidak charge terlampau tinggi sehingga membebankan rakyat, kan. So gitu. So in which that the level how much we pay, how much actually they need to charge actually also have been measured. So ini mereka sesama mereka di swasta itu berbincang di bawah satu associations dan sebagainya, dan mereka melihat berapakah sebenarnya charge untuk setiap satu pesakit mengikut consultations specialist, ya, kemudian yang tidak membebankan lah. So we allow them to make money but not too much. So that is actually what happened. So how we measure in terms of doctor per visit is actually depends on our MMA schedule, for example, rather than following the either the publics that's even too cheap actually, and compared to the private that is too much. So we take an average. Which one is actually the best? The cost of the per patient visit that's supposed to be calculated as a basis.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Asimatun. I think I agree with your answer, yeah, because the government hospital have in Indonesia subsidi, yeah, from the APBN or the budgeting from the government. So maybe lower than private. Private is zero budget from the government, I think. So mau tidak mau harus mahal seperti itu kalau private.
Ya.
Nah, ini ada lagi, Prof.
Ya, ada lagi soalan itu. Menurut Ibu, apa yang menyebabkan berobat ke Penang lebih menjadi pilihan daripada wilayah lain di Malaysia? Okey, sebenarnya bukan wilayah lain di Malaysia, ya. So, memang menjadi peminat Indonesia untuk pergi ke Penang atau ke Kuala Lumpur.
Betul.
Ya, berbanding dengan di tempat lain. Pertama adalah health tourism ataupun hospital yang offer health tourism itu tidak banyak di tempat lain. Ya, kenapa tidak banyak? Kerana mereka offer a package. They offer a package of medical and also a tourism. So kalau dia pergi ke di tempat lain di Malaysia, enggak ada tourismnya, contohnya, ataupun tourism itu kurang menarik, ya. Jadi sebab itu Pulau Pinang itu atau Penang itu actually more beautiful island, so many things that can be done there compared to other places. Similar to Kuala Lumpur, there is so many things in Kuala Lumpur compared to other states of the country, Malaysia. So people goes to Kuala Lumpur and also Penang because there is so many things for them to offer. Another thing is actually about the hospital itself. So hospital that provide this health tourism is available in Penang and also in Kuala Lumpur. That not many hospital that offer health tourism in other states. Yeah, for example, in Kedah State, for example, or in other states. So because the hospital that involved in health tourism must be a significant company. It must be a big company that actually can offer. For example, Gleneagle. In Kuala Lumpur, we have Gleneagle. Then we have KPJ. It's a very strong health organizations that already goes to elsewhere of the country. Then maybe we have Pantai, for example. We have a few that actually healthcare tourism company that actually have their own hospital in certain states that actually also offer the tourism part rather than other states. So that's essentially the difference. That's why people go to Penang rather than go to Langkawi, for example. Langkawi is purely tourism, no hospital exactly, because they don't have much things to offer. Yeah, so you can come to Kuala Lumpur, for example. And why Johor Bahru ataupun Johor is actually don't offer much about the health tourism, because it's actually near to Singapore.
Yeah.
So Indonesian won't go to Johor, they prefer go to Singapore, for example. So if they want to come to Malaysia, they will go to Penang or they will go to the Kuala Lumpur.
Okay, Prof. Yeah, I think Penang is they are only 30 minutes from Medan, bro.
Yeah.
30
True.
minutes by flight. So 80 until 90%, the patient of the clinical or island hospital in the Penang from the Medan, bro.
Yes, from the Sumatra. From the
Sumatra.
Yeah. So the one from the Java, I think, go to Kuala Lumpur rather than to the Penang.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Any other questions?
Okay. Any other question, the participant?
Yeah, any other questions?
Maybe last question from me, Prof, about the budgeting top down and bottom up. So what the hospital decide? What the requirement? Hospital choose the top down or the bottom up, or mixing both of them.
How to choose?
Yes.
How to choose? Okay, so for, as I mentioned just now, the criteria. Okay, so bottom up is actually top down is most easier.
Yeah.
Okay, and actually more we don't have much resources to be used. Okay, so in the case mix is actually using the top down.
Yeah.
Okay, however, top down must be a small organizations, so centralizations. So in Indonesia, for example, so you need to look at what sorts of budget that you want to apply. So if the budget is actually depends on the money, okay? So if the budget is actually from the higher authority, and what is actually the higher authority wants to give to the lower, they can use a top down. But in Malaysia itself, although we are small, we are actually not totally centralizations in terms of the budgeting. So in which that there is a few budget that actually we said is actually top down, but there is a few budget is actually bottom up. So every year, our states, our districts, for example, will apply the portions of budget that is actually bottom up. So depends on the organizations, you can decide. It depends on the state, because in Indonesia, you have the state authority, isn't it? The money by the state rather than for the federal. You have the federal money and also you have the state money. Okay, so you need to decide what actually the states will determine. Okay, so then you can use the bottom up, for example, to request from the federal. Okay, but for the federal to deliver the resources to the lower organizations, then of course they use a top down. Besides that, they can also mix up. Yeah, so at the state level, as a small organizations, you can also have centralizations, and also you can also have bottom up. So you need to decide what sorts of the data that you want to implement, which one. Okay, for example, I can give an example in terms of building the hospital. Okay, building hospital for certain states is actually needed bigger budget. Okay, so and the bigger budget need to foresee in terms as the whole states or the whole country or the whole state in Indonesia, for example. So that is actually need a component of bottom up in terms of the informations but also need the decision of top down. So it's not really strict to use one budget system for everything. You can mix up, yeah, and it depends on the situations, depends on the item, depends on the program, and depends on the organization itself. So there is so many things that we can actually measure. However, from my lecture just now, you can see which one actually fits to using which one. So we in a health economy, we try to not to very fixed. We try to very flexible so that we can fulfill the needs of others. So the need of the population and also the needs of the limitations of resources by the organizations head, for example, or the federal, for example, or by the states, for example. Okay.
Okay, Prof. Thank you. It's very clear. Okay. Thank you, Prof. Azimatun. There is a participant have a question more?
Yeah. Any questions? Ada lagi soalan?
Mumpung ada ahlinya, teman-teman semua.
Boleh saya bertanya, program ini sebenarnya ini adalah masters. Is it a S2? S1 atau S2?
Ini S1, Prof.
S1, okay.
Iya.
So
S1.
Kalau S1 itu agak advance ini ya?
Betul, Prof. Betul. Ini sebenarnya ini pembahasan untuk master degree.
Iya, itu yang saya terfikir-fikir ini. Saya memang rasanya nampak seperti S2. Tetapi saya terfikir-fikir, aduh, subjek ini agak berat ini juga. Kerana kita mungkin kerana di healthcare, our S1 itu adalah health kan?
Yes.
Jadi untuk topik ini menjadi sebagai S2 gitu. Jadi mungkin sebab ini adalah ekonomi ya, Faculty of Ekonomi ya.
Ya, betul, Prof.
Jadi mungkin tidak jadi kena bagaimana mau diceritakan itu mungkin agak sukar itu.
So, jadi maybe the combine, Prof, combine because the public sector, one of the public sector is a health field ya. Jadi tetap masuk saja, Prof, kalau ketika kita sampaikan terkait dengan penganggaran di rumah sakit dan seterusnya.
Iya, betul.
Memang sudah advance. Memang kalau yang kedua ini saya akui ini sudah level di master, tapi tidak apa-apa, Prof.
Tak mengapa. Jadi kalau rasa agak sukar ya untuk memahaminya itu mungkin kita perlu ada interaksi ya, perlu ada lagi beberapa pencerahan ataupun beberapa ilmu lagi yang perlu didalami ya. Kerana ini agak kalau bagi para doktor ya, para nurses dan sebagainya, ini untuk tahap 2 ya, S2. Mungkin bagi orang yang ekonomis ya, so ini juga agak sukar kerana perlu dipahami tentang sistem kesihatan itu dahulu kan. So jadi perlu memahami sistem kesihatan, perlu dipahami tentang administrative part kan, public servant and etc. baru try to mix with the economy.
Okay, Prof. I think it's no problem because knowledge is everywhere ya, Prof.
Yep.
Knowledge is everywhere. This is new insight for all of the participants in the Zoom, in the UTTV, and YouTube. So this is the healthcare budgeting and financial. Yeah, it's very complicated, very detailed. For the calculate the unit cost, I think it's very crucial. Yeah. For the hospital to decide the unit cost in Indonesia. It's very tight calculation of the unit cost.
Yeah.
Karena kalau tak detail, Prof, rugi mereka, Prof.
Betul. Sebenarnya banyak yang rugi. Kalau tidak betul kiranya, seringnya rugi.
Siap, Prof. Okay, if there is no question anymore for the Prof. Azimatun, maybe this is the end of the session in the e-lecturing, international e-lecturing, the second session. Before we end of the event, there are some, we would like to thank you to you, Prof. Azimatun Nur Aizuddin, and have we give a certificate of honor, yeah, from UT.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. But
So I really hope that actually we have more interactive work maybe in future, so that we actually can discuss further in terms of this thing. So hopefully, okay. I have a question. So where is this based? I mean, the university is based. Faculty of Education. So where are you actually? Sorry, Faculty of Economy. Where are you actually? In which part of Indonesia? Because I saw just now many parts of Indonesia you are.
Universitas Terbuka in South Tangerang, Prof. South Tangerang is near from the Jakarta.
Oh, that mean in Java?
Yeah, Java, Prof. Java.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. From Kuala Lumpur only 2 hours, Prof. By by Malindo, Prof.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully, when I visit BPJS, I can also visit you.
Siap, Prof.
Inshallah. Thank you very much the opportunity.
Thank you, Prof. Azimatun. Thank you very much for your time. And this is the end of our session for the international lecturing. Thank you for your coming. Thank you for your attention and all of the participant question. So see you in the next event, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.
Welcome. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Ratna.